Hey, MBA hopefuls, we are on the air with MBA Waves, your weekly vidcast talking all things business and education. Today we have on the show Simon Business School at the University of Rochester in beautiful upstate New York, favorite of mine. And on this 133rd episode, we are going to learn just what makes Simon Business School so great and why the students on today's panel chose Simon. What's life like on campus at Simon and in the city of Rochester, New York, and just what a Simon MBA can do for your career. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great MBA Waves content. I'm your host for today, Lucrezia, joined by my co-hosts Bara Sapir and Krithika Srinivasan. How you doing, guys?
Hey, good to see you.
You too. We have four guests joining us today from Simon. First up, Julie Sadwick, who's the Director of Admissions and EDI Special Projects. LaTanya Johns, Assistant Dean of Career Management and Corporate Engagement. Anvesh, Jagini, who's a full-time MBA student graduating this May. And first-year student, Shabnam Popal, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing your name right, who's also a full-time student graduating next year in 2025. Welcome to the show, everyone. We're going to just jump right into it. So welcome to MBA Waves. Let's talk about what's new and exciting at Simon. Julie, if you wouldn't mind starting us off. You know, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I remember you singing the praises of Simon and Rochester at many MBA fairs over the years. How would you describe the culture at Simon?
Hi, Eric. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having us today. The culture. Well, I have been at Simon for such a long time. Yes, Eric, you and I have known each other for many years, traveled together for a really long time. I have been in the admissions office for over 18 years, and you don't stay here for as long as I have without absolutely loving it. So, the culture is incredibly unique in a way that I would say that it's a small school intentionally, and what comes with that is I don't even necessarily like to say family necessarily, but it's a small school feel in terms of the support system that students get is unlike any other. And so when you come into Simon, you are very well known, and you're known by not just each other, all the students know each other really well, but you're known by the staff as well as the faculty. So, that's something that I think is quite unique and really amazing. So when your professors know who you are and you actually have access to your professors and they know you on a first name basis, that's pretty incredible. And the access that you have in terms of going to their office and being able to connect with them on a very unique basis, and also utilize them throughout your career, be able to refer to them as you're going through your career is amazing. So I would say the culture is just unique in the fact that you're well known.
That's what you can get from a smaller program. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to culture, I have to say that Simon is known for getting a rank 1 and 2 in diversity among the top 50 ranked MBA programs in the past 2 years. So this question is for Anvesh and Shabnam. What have you guys experienced in terms of diversity, and especially on campus, and the overall culture? Maybe like a quick example on the campus culture that you experience.
Sure, I can start. I'd say one thing I love about Simon culture and diversity is, one, Simon is incredibly diverse, but Simon actually takes pride in being diverse, but also works towards using that diversity to increase our knowledge about how different cultures work, how this affects business, how this brings in different ideas and everything. And it creates a really, like Julie was saying, beautiful community that you get to know each other from. Even when you're from 50 different parts of the world, you're all in this one building and everybody knows each other's name. When Julie was talking, I was just thinking of this example. Julie and I were on a call a couple months ago when a student asked us about an alum, and Julie started looking up on LinkedIn, couldn't find the alum. Julie immediately started calling this alum that graduated 6 years ago, just check on them to see if they're okay. That's the kind of community we're talking about, to make sure even after 6 years you graduate, you still have somebody to check on you to make sure you're doing all right. But yeah, no, it's just an incredibly beautiful community where everybody knows you and you feel at home.
Yeah, I definitely second Anvesh's sentiments. I feel like Simon definitely does hold pride in being one of the most diverse campuses for an MBA program. And one example that comes to mind is actually more recent. So a lot of Muslims are celebrating Ramadan, and I'm a first-year rep for strategy and policy for the EDI Student Coalition, which is the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Student Coalition. And one of our second-year classmates, she spearheaded non-Muslim, and she realized that some of the classes were overlapping with the time to break fast. And for me, it wasn't something that came into consideration because I didn't have any night classes that conflicted with it. But it was so nice to feel seen, to understand that our classmates really care about just, inclusivity, diversity. I feel like the types of students that are attracted to this program truly, truly build that commitment to EDI. And I think it just speaks volume of the type of culture that we have here at Simon.
Some cool examples right there.
Yeah, we really need this now, right? We really need diversity and a celebration of diversity more than ever, especially when so many forces are putting us not. They're not really enforcing or celebrating diversity on the larger government scale. So I'm really thrilled to hear that the school takes so much pride in that. I wanted to ask a little bit about Rochester. Rochester's known for Kodak. It's known for Xerox. I know that it was the first boom town because of the Erie Canal. And of course, you have this amazing jazz festival. Can you talk a little bit about how Rochester has shaped the kind of MBA program that Simon delivers?
Absolutely. Simon, actually, you're right. We've been in Rochester. Rochester is actually an amazing city. We are one of the largest cities in New York State. A lot of people don't realize that. We are, I think it's the third largest, maybe the fourth at this point, but either way, it still is a fairly large city and amazing amount of intellectual talent. So yes, Kodak was here, Xerox was here, still is here, Bausch and Lomb, and what comes with that is still a ton of people that are still residing in this city. And a lot of those people have created patents and, have there is just an amazing amount of people who actually created their own startup companies after Kodak and Xerox really, lost a lot of those people or retired. So they actually are still residing here. And so I would say there are startup companies that are here. There's a lot of small businesses. And what comes from that is, Simon being in this community, we as at Simon, and actually Shab can speak to this, I believe, we have what's called Simon Vision Consulting. And so it's an opportunity for our students to have additional hands-on experience. So if they're looking for additional project work, to create opportunities to gain more skills in another area that they're not familiar with. Simon creates opportunities for students to, have sort of like pro bono work for these startup or small companies where companies maybe can't afford to hire, consulting firms or large consulting firms. So they come to Simon and they work with Simon students who are incredibly talented, students from all across the world who come from such a great wide variety of backgrounds. And these students are working directly with these companies on project work. And so it's amazing because, and actually I shouldn't even take away from Shab. Shab, you can actually speak to this even better than I can. So did you want to go ahead and speak to this a little bit more?
Sure. Julie, you summarized it so perfectly. I think Simon Vision Consulting has been an integral part of my MBA experience so far. I was able to serve as a project manager and led a team of 5 consultants. And there's a lot of different project managers focusing on different businesses in the Rochester community. But as Julie mentioned, I think the wealth of knowledge that comes from the experience and the rich history in Rochester from Xerox and from Kodak and Bausch and Lomb, we see a lot of these retired employees or people who have worked at these large companies who start their own companies, who are able to give back to the Rochester, we're able to give back to the Rochester community by helping them with different business problems. And I think having that experiential learning has definitely shaped my experience from a student perspective. And it's really exciting to be able to use the classroom knowledge that we're learning from professors and then be able to apply that to real world business problems through Simon Vision Consulting.
Thank you. And then going back to that question too, thanks, Shab. Going back to that question too, I just wanted to add, a lot of the, those that used to work at Xerox and Kodak, a lot of them are actually working or employed with the university now, and we're the largest employer in the Rochester region. But we also have 18 other colleges and universities in this region. So it does go to show that there are a ton of other educational institutions in this area. And, I know that you referred to the International Jazz Festival. The University of Rochester also has the Eastman School of Music, which is one of the top music institutions here in the world. And so we're very proud of that, as well as being part of the University of Rochester too. So lots to be proud of at U of R. Anyone else have anything to add to that? I'm sure I'm missing plenty.
Well, speaking of Jazz Festival, listen, one of my best friends, he's been going up there because he's got family up in Rochester. So he's been asking me to join him for that for years and years. And last year we were almost about to go and his car broke down. And so last minute that trip was canceled and I'm so disappointed. But that means, Julie, I'm going to come see you.
You've been saying this for years. We need to get you here. It is awesome. This Jazz Festival is pretty epic. So you have to come here.
I definitely
Big
will.
Big names every year. Mm-hmm.
I know, it's serious. It's like a massive international thing. Julie, but tying in the city of Rochester.
What?
I'm sorry, I was just going to make mention of the famous garbage plate here in Rochester.
Oh, yeah.
You have to tell people about that if you're talking about Rochester.
Well, LaTanya, I was actually just going to ask you a question. So let's tie it all together. You can lead off with the garbage plate thing because I have no idea what that's about. I'm very curious. But as one of the key people at Simon working on careers for your students, I would just love to hear what you've heard from employers about Simon MBA students and what their perspectives are.
Okay, I'll start there. I don't know how to weave in the garbage plate description with the question you just asked, Eric. So let me start with that question, and then I'll talk about the infamous garbage plate. But but companies, and just again, my name is LaTanya Johns, and I have the honor of working with our talented MBA students in the Bennett Career Management Center. And as part of my role, I have an opportunity to talk to employers, hear from employers, and also to have a better understanding of how Simon students are making impacts in their companies. One of the things that employers across the board comment about the Simon MBA students is just how their critical thinking abilities, their ability to tackle business problems, challenges, and really just in day one, they have a framework, they have strategies for how they can solve complex problems utilizing some of the technologies and tools that they've acquired through their training at Simon, but just having a great framework for approaching complex problems. And I think that's something that employers from any industries they're looking for. Students that have that ability are in high demand. So that's one thing. I also think that communication will definitely continue to be a skill that is in high demand from companies. It's not enough to have the business acumen, but you have to be able to communicate. And that goes back to what we've been talking about in terms of diversity. One of the things I was thinking of when my colleague and also our students were talking about diversity here at Simon is companies see diversity and being able to lead across diverse teams. This is a business initiative. Companies that have diverse staff and companies that are have diverse teams are more productive and more profitable. And so I think when companies are hiring MBA talent, They are looking for folks that can not only come into the organization, solve these complex business challenges, come into the organization and be able to communicate across all levels of leadership at the organization. And that comes with a lot of confidence. And you're having to present to C-level executives, but also that understand that diversity is a solution to a lot of the challenges that businesses face. So I'm very proud to be attached to the Simon community. I'm very happy to be back in Rochester. As my colleague Julie was talking about some of the great things here. One thing that I wanted to mention that popped in my mind as she was talking about Rochester was we are known for the garbage plate. And Julie, help me out if I don't do this justice, but most of the restaurants in the Rochester area have their own version of a garbage plate. And basically what it is, it's a plate, it's a meal, and it's got usually some kind of a pasta salad. There's meat, there's all of the trimmings, onions and meat sauce. And it's just a big, huge conglomerate of food that's served as a meal. And each restaurant puts their different spin on it, whether it's with the gravy or with some of the sauces. And so I think that's something that anyone from upstate New York is familiar with, a garbage plate. And I think the name garbage plate came from the fact that these are different foods that may not necessarily go together, but they're so good. Julie, did I do okay with that?
They are so good, yes. And I think back when you and I were a little bit younger, it was more of like the, later night fare. But I think it's become more of the like common, let's have it during the day kind of affair. Mm-hmm. My daughter will come home from, living elsewhere and literally have it immediately for lunch when she comes home. She loves it. But yes, it's amazing.
I mean, it's really reassuring to hear this has nothing to do with garbage. Okay, that's good.
No, it's not garbage. It just, it's just a pile of food together. So,
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and we don't have like a better visual representation of diversity than that.
Right. If you're one of those people that can't have your food touching one another, you can't eat it. But
that's very true.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's a riff on Restaurant Week or something too, right? I don't know if Rochester has Restaurant Week. We're having it now in the Berkeley area right now this week, but it sounds like such a great play on that. I'd love to ask Anvesh and Shabnam, what was it, or why did you ultimately choose Simon, and how has it matched your expectations or exceeded your expectations, and the ties to the outcome, like jobs and internships that you mentioned before?
I can take this one first. Thank you for the question. And there's so many reasons. I feel like if I had to narrow it down to 3 main reasons, I would definitely speak on the community aspect, the culture of Simon, and the faculty. So talking about the community a little bit, when I first came, I came to Diversity Weekend, and I also had the opportunity to come to Women's Weekend. So I had the chance to meet current students, sit in on a class, and interact with current students, alumni, and faculty in a more tight-knit environment. And some of my non-negotiables as I was going through this MBA application process was I went to a larger undergrad university. I graduated from UC Davis and was born and raised in California. So I knew I wanted to move over to the East Coast, but I knew I wanted a smaller community to be able to build those relationships. And I feel like Julie and LaTanya already kind of spoke a little bit about this. And then in addition to that, I wanted to feel seen by faculty members, and that's definitely been the outcome so far. I think one week I was feeling a little ill. I missed 2 classes and all my professors emailed me, and that's never happened before. They're like, hey, just checking in. I hope you're doing okay. If you need additional things, one of your classmates mentioned that you're not feeling too well. And I think that just speaks volume on, number 1, the culture, and number 2, that community aspect, in addition to faculty and staff really wanting to support you. And then I think lastly, just the feeling that I got when I came onto campus. And I remember immediately, Julie gave me her immediate phone, her direct cell number. I had Andrew Brayda and Nicole from admissions cell numbers. The current students were very eager to answer any of the questions, but I don't want to take up too much of the talking points. I'll definitely pass it over to Anvesh to talk about why he chose Simon and how that helped his outcome as well.
Thanks, Shab. I think she already stole all my points. But to be completely honest, I think when I was going through list of schools that I wanted to be in, I wanted to be in a smaller school where I'm not just a number out of 800, but a name and myself. And I also wanted to be closer on the East Coast. And I was an engineer for a long time. I wanted to switch into consulting, which is what brought me to Simon. And yeah, it worked out great. I love it. I came in here for the admit student weekend 2 years ago, April, this weekend actually. And I don't know, I came in thinking, let me figure out what Simon is. And a day and a half later, I already signed it while I was here this weekend. And I said, this is what I'm doing. I've got to go. And it doesn't make sense when people say community a lot. But once you're here, once you're with the people, you just feel a part of something, feel like you're a part of a family. And being a part of a beautiful family for 2 years is more than anything you can ask for. But that's about why I'm here at Simon. But everything else in terms of the Bennett Center or the classes have been wonderful too. And this intentionally small cohort actually works out great for us. I was just before this, I was actually getting lunch with a professor to talk about how our class has been going and how we were talking about how we can change things. And that's the part of Simon I love, that it's small enough that we're able to work every day to make it better and make that changes quickly. AI has been taking over our lives in the last few months, so we already have an AI class, and my discussion with my professor was on to how to bring AI into every other class and how to make students use it. But yeah, it's a great place to learn while you're feeling a part of a family and get your career set in the direction that you want to. Yeah.
And Anvesh, you were able to successfully pivot from engineering to consulting. I don't want to toot your own horn. I'll let you speak on that, but I feel like you're too humble to brag. So,
no,
please.
thank you. I came into Simon as an engineer. I wanted to move into consulting. I secured an internship last year with McKinsey, and I turned that into a full-time job, and I'm starting next month with them. I'm excited.
Bravo.
Eric, can I comment on something with regards to Anvesh, and just, I think another part of the Simon experience is that just pay it forward. I had the opportunity because one of my staff members was ill, and so I took over a workshop that she was doing. But Anvesh, it was a workshop designed to help students to learn or to hone in on their case interview skills. And so Anvesh was in the session, and he actually did a mock case interview. And so he just seeing him go through that process. One of his peers was the interviewer, and Anvesh played the role of the interviewee. And it goes back to what I said about those critical thinking skills. It was just so cool to see him go through that. And I had this idea in my head that, wow, this is why McKinsey hired him. He is good. And so I think that, that's another unique thing about our students, our current students. They are always looking across the classroom at their peers and how they can help them. And so Anvesh took the time to help his first year peers by talking to them about, if you're going into a consulting interview, this is what they're expecting. So I just wanted to, again, Shab, I agree with you. Anvesh is not going to toot his own horn, but that's why we're here. But I just really appreciated him in that moment for what he was offering to his classmates.
That's a great point. And if you don't mind me just validating that, I think we are a school that's going to be much more collaborative than we are going to be competitive. So the expectation is that you come into Simon, and being a small school is that, you turn around and give back. When you're solidifying your job or your internship, turn around and help support your peers. So that is who we are as a school. And I would like to make sure that others do understand that that's who we are. So if a candidate is looking for that type of support, that is who we are.
We got a taste of it right here through the lovely support that you're all showing each other. And congrats, Anvesh. I know that Simon also has some wonderful professors and faculty, and of course, some of the classes. What has been some of your favorite classes so far, and some favorite professors, and what makes them so great?
I can take this one and pass it over to you, Anvesh. We both are eager to talk about professors, obviously, because there's so many. But as we were talking about some of the rich history in Rochester and the companies that were founded here, including Xerox, Kodak, Bosch & Lomb, I immediately thought of Professor Colangelo. Roberto Colangelo, he teaches competitive strategy on campus, and it's been one of my most favorite courses I've taken. I think just being able to pick his brain from 5:40 to 9 p.m. It was one of my first night classes on campus, and it was absolutely worth it because he was talking about his experiences in entrepreneurship, and he hosted a lunch. And I remember like people were speeding onto Simon Source, which is one of the websites that we use to log on to events and register for them. And yeah, he is just one of those professors who just has such a deep wealth of knowledge because of his experiences that he's had both in Rochester and beyond. And he also, I believe, is one of the sitting board members or an advisor for the Simon School Venture Fund, which I'm not a part of, but definitely wanted to talk about that a little bit because the Venture Fund has a lot of faculty members who are able to kind of allow students who are interested in finance and venture capital in any aspect of that industry to gain that hands-on experience. So it's kind of a parallel to vision consulting, but for the finance world. But go ahead, Anvesh.
Thanks, Shab. I'd say competitive strategy for sure. I actually loved Colangelo as well. I took 3 straight classes in 3 different semesters with him because I just loved listening to him talk. But I'd say my favorites have been game theory. I love board games, and I just love understanding the games within the business and the business decisions. Game theory was one of my favorite classes, and also pricing. Simon's known for their pricing concentration, which was also one of the decisions that I had to make when I was coming in. It's always the psychology of pricing has always been interested to me. It's just like, why do we price something at $9.99, not 10, or all of these things? And coming to Simon and being able to take all of these pricing classes and understanding what companies do and why companies do them, and getting a behind the scenes picture of all these things and learning how to use these strategies have been wonderful. Yeah, I love that. And every time I talk to somebody about pricing at a conference, they're like, oh, Simon's known for it. And our professor's wonderful for that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned, I think we're one of the, if not the only school that has a pricing concentration. So,
So that makes I was going to ask you about admissions, but that makes me wonder about Simon's pricing strategy in terms of the MBA program itself. And it looks like
I'm not involved in the pricing strategy at Simon, so I can't speak to that. That's above my pay grade.
So, all right, so let's focus on admissions process itself. So many of our listeners today might be considering applying to this program. So what should they expect? Like, what are some suggestions that you guys would like to offer, either, from Julie, from the admissions and recruitment side, or from the students, some suggestions that you'd like to offer in terms of being a great applicant for Simon?
I'm happy to start on that end. Doing this for so long, I think, for me, a huge part of the admissions process is truly getting to know us and actually immersing yourself in this process and joining today. Listening to us live helps you to get to know us. And so I'm thankful that you've joined or are going to be listening to us. And, so that is the first step. Second, we've got lots of different opportunities to engage with our team. But also, the typical components of an application, we do like to see you actually be authentic in your application process. So when you're working through your essays, be genuine. When you're also engaging with our team, also be genuine and just interact. Schedule a call with us if you can. I would say tests are not going to be as important to us. We like to see the test come through if you have a test, but I also will say The one good thing about the pandemic that happened, not many good things happened through the pandemic, but one good thing that happened was for all of us schools, we had to take a step back and say, for that first year, because there wasn't a test opportunity, that we all had to, allow an opportunity for people to submit applications without a test score. And that did provide us a chance to take a look at candidates without a test score for a brief period of time. And so we had to look at all other aspects of a candidate's profile. And I think what we at Simon were able to determine was there are a lot of other components of a candidate's profile that we were able to assess, including transcripts. We really were able to get into the coursework, take a look at majors, and determine if there were other components that were able to help us to assess whether someone could be successful in our curriculum. And we were able to determine if that was going to be the case. And we also have ways to help a candidate become successful, whether it's giving them criteria where they had to take a course before they come in and enter the program. So we do have ways for someone to enhance their skills before they enter the program. So we are at this point test optional. But another reason why I love the fact that we are test optional at this point is because not everyone has the resources to continue to take a test over and over again, or to even pay for resources to study for an exam. So there are candidates all across the world who don't have the financial resources to continue to take an exam to get to a point where they're getting, say, for instance, on a GMAT exam to a 700 GMAT. We don't, that's just not an opportunity for everyone. So I do appreciate the fact that we are at a point where that's not something that we require of a candidate. So that makes me happy. And that's where we, are inclusive of where we are in our admissions process. But if someone is able to take a test and contribute to that, that is something that we look at. But going back to what we do look at is personality is huge. We look at the reasons why somebody is pursuing an MBA. So you should have a good reason why you're pursuing an MBA. Have a focus. What are you looking for? Most people are going back for an MBA to increase their earning power. So you should have, thought about what your post-MBA career plans are. You don't have to know exactly what you want to do, but have some forethought of what the direction that you're going in. So be thinking about that. But also, we're also looking at how you're going to do in the program. Are you going to come into the program and be able to absorb everything that you're learning, be a good teammate? We're putting you in teams of people that are very different from you intentionally. So are you going to be somebody who's going to be able to easily take feedback from others, be able to take feedback, give feedback in a caring way? So are you coachable? Those are things that we think about as we're sitting in on the admissions committee. So are you going to be a thoughtful and a teammate that's going to be able to contribute to your team? So those are all things that we think about.
I know that that tests don't necessarily talk about collaboration or empathy, but in being test optional, and I'm coming from the test world, right? I've been doing test prep for a really long time. I've got a couple follow-up questions. First of all, you're test optional, but do you have any data of how many students are being accepted that are taking the GMAT or the GRE? And then beyond that, I'm curious about what your experience has been with the GMAT Focus and the new GRE. And do you have a preference for either one of them, or what are your students saying about those tests?
I don't have that data myself personally, but I would say at least 60%, 70% of our candidates that are applying are taking the test. So we still have a very large amount of candidates that are applying that are taking the test. Mm-hmm. So that isn't an issue just yet, but but we do accept candidates that do not have a test.
And do you like the GMAT focus? Are you telling candidates to take either test, or
we will accept all of them? So we do not have a preference. So whatever is easiest for them to take, we will accept all of them. Obviously, the GMAT focus, we don't have the data yet. I mean, it's too new. So we don't have the data just yet, but we'll take them all.
Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So I was curious about how does the Career Management Center come into play into admissions, or does it have a say at all in the early process?
Julie, do you want me to start?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So absolutely, yes. I feel one of the strong points or strong suits of Simon is the relationship between the admissions team and function and the Career Management Center. So we do have quite a bit of interaction with Julie and her colleagues, but I know in my time here at Simon, I've had the opportunity to meet with some of our candidates before they've been admitted, and the two events that Shab mentioned, the diversity conference and the women's conference that we run every fall, that's an opportunity for prospective students to come to our campus, to get to meet current students, to get to meet some of our staff, but also we do have a Career Management Center session with them. And so we're able to get a chance to see students in action, get a chance to see them in our element, in our community, and really start to educate them on what life at Simon in terms of being a job seeker is going to start looking like. And we usually get some early indicators of students and their, I guess, the grit that they have coming into the program. And is this going to be a really good decision for them? So, and there are several instances where we've been able to run over to Julie and say, oh my goodness, please admit Anvesh, please admit Shab. They are amazing. And then there have been times when we've maybe had a decision or a conversation about Simon might not be the best fit for a particular student. So I appreciate that the admissions opens the door for us to have that conversation. Well, even before that, to give us the look, to give us the opportunity, because ultimately, whoever is admitted to Simon, they will become partners working with myself and our team in the Career Management Center. So it is important that we do have that front end understanding of what is admissions, what are they seeing in terms of applications, what are some of the different nuances, what are some of the questions that prospective students have as they're coming into this environment and about to make this really big investment in themselves. So all of those things are so extremely helpful for me and my team, because each cohort has a different look and feel. They have a different personality. The job market is always doing something different for each class that comes in. And so all of those things need to be discussed, and there needs to be some consensus around what does the next cohort look like, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we can support them, each of them, regardless of where they're coming in from, to reach the goals that they are setting for themselves. So I value that relationship. I would be really distraught if we didn't have the openness that we do have. And I think it would be a detriment to our students if we didn't have that. So thank you, Julie, and your team, because I think it really does set the tone for how we can, in the Career Center, how we can support our students each year.
Thank you, LaTanya. And when we talk about collaboration, yes, we collaborate even amongst our staff. So LaTanya and her team are amazing. And when we talk about admissions at Simon, I shared a lot about what we look for, but we're obviously looking for the success of the student or the candidate. And so if somebody's, coming in and they have some unusual career goals, we want to make sure that we can support a candidate. We don't want to enroll somebody that we feel as though we're going to not be able to support. And so oftentimes we will consult with LaTanya and her team and say, what do you think about this candidate? We certainly don't want somebody to come in here and be unhappy with what we're able to offer or not able to offer them as well. So that is a huge part of the assessment process as well. So thanks, LaTanya, for sharing.
Listening to what LaTanya just said, something really struck me about the fact that sometimes she's had the opportunity to speak with applicants before they've even been admitted, let alone being a student. And I think that's such an opportunity. Back when I used to work at a business school here in France, it was also a small program, on average, like 75 students a year. And we had this very circular model that alumni and career services were very much a part of the admissions process in terms of sharing their experiences. But as much as admissions is in opening the door and helping people begin or start with the school, career services is kind of like the exit, right? And so being aligned to make sure everyone's on the same page. Yes, this person is a fit and we are a fit for them culturally. And we have the resources and the connections in terms of companies and so forth, professors to help them achieve those goals. Super important. So this makes me think about what you guys have, leveraged with your career services, right? Anvesh, Shab, could you guys share a little story, nothing too long, but a little story about your interaction with careers?
Yeah, I have worked closely with the Bennett Career Management Center since I even fully committed to Simon. I was in contact with Stephanie Aluko, who manages a lot of the programs. And as a consortium and Forte admin, I had the opportunity to work closely with the Bennett Center once I did fully commit to prepare for these pre-MBA conferences. And I believe that Simon definitely sets their students, equips them with the tools and resources to be ready to give their pitches in front of recruiters, do well in interviews, do well in technical interviews. And I think that goes back to that almost circular motion that you were talking about, Eric, of wanting to pay it forward to the next cohort. We see BCPs or Bennett career peers like Anvesh, who then, pay forward what he's learned from his consulting technical interviews. And I also was very intrigued in paying it forward. So next year I'll be a BCP and working more closely with the Bennett Career Center as well. And yeah, anything else you'd like to add on, Vesh?
No, I think you covered it all. But yeah, no, same. I've been working with the Career Center even before I got to Simon. I came here for a week, and before I accepted my offer. And I started working with the Career Center then. And as soon as I took my offer, I started working with my advisor even before I was in Rochester. And they got me prepared for conferences 2 weeks into my MBA program. And we were doing great at the conferences. Now, the advisors here, and like Shabnam mentioned, the BCPs and everybody's wonderful. And we're a small program and we love taking care of each other. So we love paying it forward in any way we can. Yeah. And the Career Center teaches us that in a great way.
That's awesome. And besides careers, I know there's some other opportunities that are more on the international side. So I wanted to ask, I keep hearing about this international immersion opportunity that Simon MBA students have. So what exactly is this? How does it work? Is it required? Is it optional? Is there an eligibility process? What's this about?
It's optional. I don't know if anyone else wants to mention. I'm happy to talk about that. They are during the breaks. So they are credit bearing. They're credit bearing. We have multiple ones to choose from. So, you can go they just got back from Switzerland. So that one was a finance related one. We have a partnership with Bern in Switzerland. We also had one to South Africa over the winter break. So that was in January. We have Singapore. We have Israel. Obviously, that one was canceled this year for obvious reasons. We have, there's one, I believe, being created in, is it Colombia or Peru? So South America right now. And, but yes, there are multiple ones to choose from. They're during the breaks. Typically, you could do up to 4 of them during the 2-year MBA program. But again, they're optional. So
I'm sorry, Julie. I'm going to ask one more thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but are these
No.
exchanges with schools in these countries that you mentioned, or are these kind of
No.
consulting projects? What are they?
They're project. Yep. So they start the project work before they leave. So they're working with a professor, and they work on the project work before they leave. So then they go over to wherever it is. So say, for instance, it was Switzerland. Then they are usually presenting to a company or companies in that country, learning how business is done in the country. And so, and then they're doing some cultural site visits. And so it's actually typically a 10 to 12 day duration in length. And so it's a fairly quick visit. So it's not too lengthy, but it's great because they're usually going with about 15 to 22 people. So it's a small enough group. It's with typically 2 staff members and 1 professor usually. So small enough group to be able to really enjoy and get to know the group really well. Again, credit bearing and yeah.
Nice. All right. Thank you for making that clear.
Clarifying that. Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We talked a bunch about the industries that are in Rochester. Can you talk a little bit about some of the main industries that the Simon MBA grads specialize in?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about that, Bara. So thinking about our current class, Anvesh's class, they're still with us, just for a few more weeks though. Tear emoji. But thinking about the outcomes of their predecessors, the class of 2023, the top 5 industries, and we do a lot with the data when a class, once we collect all of the data, because it's very informing, and it also is information that our colleagues in admissions can use as they're talking to prospective students. So our class of 2023, their top 5 industries were consulting, healthcare, financial services, technology, and CPG, or consumer packaged goods. And within that industry, some of the companies that they worked with or hired them, I should say. We've got companies with Bain and Company, Ernst & Young, JP Morgan and Chase, Amazon, Microsoft, Verizon, Apple, Procter & Gamble, Eli Lilly, Merck. So not much different than what you might see from a top-ranked business school in terms of company representation. But one of the things that I love about Simon students is everyone has their target company list, and everyone has reasons why they're targeting certain companies. And so because our students are so unique in terms of their interest and where they want to see their career, it gives us in the Career Center opportunities to work with some other companies that may not be as well known, but that have amazing opportunities. They might be smaller companies. It might provide students with an opportunity to gain more visibility with senior leadership. Maybe they can build their career there a lot faster. So there's a variety in terms of what the students' interests are. Obviously, in the Career Center, we're going to provide students with insights in terms of what's happening in the job market. We all saw over the last year and a half what's been happening in the technology space. But what does that mean for our students? When you see headlines about layoffs, some students that might be interested in technology might feel that, wow, well, there goes that opportunity, but not necessarily. So what we're fortunate on our team. We have a corporate engagement team that work in the Bennett Center, and we have a consultant that is based out in California, Los Angeles. We also have a consultant that's based out on the East Coast. So we're able to not only have these conversations with these companies to find out about job opportunities and about MBA talent acquisition and some of their goals, but we've got folks on the ground in both of these really what I call hot regions of the country. And so we're actually able to really make an impact by having a physical presence. So every year when you look at our statistics, you're probably going to see those top 5 industries represented. But each year there are new companies that students will go to. There might be industries that might not have been as popular the year before. So I think that we're not a school that everyone is going. I always liken it to a conveyor belt where you've got all these students, they come into your school. Okay, you're going to go here, you're going here, you're going here. That's just not how things work at Simon. We are partnering, and we emphasize that during our orientation with our students. We are your partners. And in order for the partnership to work, both sides have to do their part and meet in the middle. So with the students in their part, it's really that self-discovery, exploring options, really looking at what they did prior to Simon and how they can tie that into a future career. And then the Career Center and being informing and letting the students know this is where the opportunities are if you're interested in this space. And so I think that model is it's crucial for students like Shab and Anvesh to get where they want to be, because it's a two-way partnership. And so I'm very happy that partnership just continues to work for our students. Obviously, there might be some students that are not interested at all in some of the the industries that are most appealing to MBAs, because everyone is unique and different. So we might have some aspiring entrepreneurs. And I actually just last week had a conversation with one of our graduates from the class of 2023. It was just checking in. She'd seen that I had gotten on her LinkedIn page, and I couldn't remember why or what search I was doing where I found her, but she reached out to me. So we set up a time, and she actually started her own business. She is very much into self-care and wellness. And so she created a company where she offers online wellness coaching. And we were just talking a little bit about her business, and she was just telling me how it's just grown. I mean, in the same way that you can meet with your doctor and you can get a diagnosis via Zoom. So, so much has been able to happen virtually. And so she was just saying how sometimes people feel that their self-care journey and their wellness journey is very private. So having an opportunity to meet with someone in a private way, such as a Zoom, to discuss your journey. She just was explaining to me there's a huge market for that. So it's a great example of someone taking their passion, but it's a business. So her training at Simon, just, going back to what we said about the pricing, the marketing, the promotion, all of the things that you need to be able to run and manage a business, she acquired that. So it's a great marriage of the two. It's your passion, it's your training, and it's where is their opportunity. So I think, with Anvesh's class, I'm seeing a lot of the offers falling in some of those same industries, consulting, financial services, healthcare, but we'll definitely be excited when we see them all graduate and see where everybody's going to be working this summer. And I know that they will all be back in some way, shape, or form, because that's the Simon community. Everyone that comes to Simon typically will find opportunities to come back and give in some way.
LaTanya, you mentioned entrepreneurships, and even though I've never been to Rochester, I've definitely heard that it is a destination not only for doing your MBA, but business in general, also high quality of life. It's much more affordable than, say, New York City. And apparently there's a really big startup scene. So do a lot of the grads you're seeing going into entrepreneurship? What could you add to that?
Not a lot, Eric. So I was just thinking about the alum that I met with last week in her class. There's probably about 3% of them had plans to start their own venture. So not a lot of our students are leaving Simon to do that. Now, I do believe that a lot of our alums, maybe after a few years of some industry experience, will start their own business. So I do think that that is definitely happening. But right out of Simon, I think a majority of our students, they come here and they want to have that industry experience. They want to work in a Fortune 500 company. They want to work work on Wall Street or work in Silicon Valley. So we don't see it as much. But as you mentioned, the startup scene here in Rochester, there is a community here. One of the things about being in the Rochester area, as Julie mentioned, there are a lot of universities, really good universities in our area, and because of that, it's somewhat of a transient city. Majority of our alums, I would even say most of our alums, most of Anvesh's classmates, they will not be living in Rochester. They'll come back for programming, but the hot spots and the job opportunities that they're looking for are not here locally. However, we do have a large number of alumni who are in the Rochester area. And Simon and University of Rochester does a great job of having opportunities for that community to come together. So even in my short time at Simon, I've been able to meet several folks that live in the Rochester area. Some of them from Simon, but others graduated from other programs at University of Rochester. So there is a startup scene here. And Julie could answer this. I don't believe that a lot of the folks that come to Simon or that put Simon on their list are looking to go into a startup situation right after graduation. So we that's probably why we're not seeing those numbers increase. They're coming to Simon for some other things. Is that pretty accurate, Julie?
That's correct. Yeah. So I would say, typically because you're right, they're trying to actually gain that industry experience, but also, I think there is just a lack of the resources to initially start their own business. I don't know that it's necessarily a lack of desire to, but, I would say though, after being here for so long, there are so many alums, and I would almost say, I think there was a stat a few years ago that I had heard, almost 50% of alums within 10 years started their own business. And so there is absolutely a desire for so many alums to start their own business. And I see that a lot as I'm traveling and talking to alums. So yeah, I just think that they need the capital, they need investors, they need to build their network. And just
that's exactly what I was going to say. We've probably seen a lot of the same things on the road, right? Yeah. People who are at MBA fairs, they're looking for the right school, and they have every agenda starting a company right after the program. And the reality is, you've got MBA debt, even if you got a bunch of scholarships. You want to get a job, you want to gain that industry experience, like LaTanya said, say in a Fortune 500 or Silicon Valley, for example. And the actual launching of a company usually doesn't happen within 3 years of starting your program. I believe the stat is this is worldwide. I believe the stat of what age the people typically have as a successful entrepreneur is something like 35. Like most people are not Mark Zuckerberg, let's be honest. So, and that's a good thing, by the way. But yeah, I also tell a lot of people, don't be fooled by a school that is not in a major city like New York City, to think that they don't necessarily have a direct pipeline to these hotspots that you're talking about, whether it's Silicon Valley or New York or London or whatever. Location can be very misleading, and I think there's also some serious advantages where schools are in a smaller city or even in a rural setting, where number one, the students have each other and there's a lot more bonding that happens. Number two, when recruiters go there and they're looking to recruit people, right, for hiring after the degree, like they're there just for that. They're not like popping by and then hitting a bunch of other things and you're just like one, visiting Simon is not just one thing on a list of things they're in Rochester to do. No, they're there to see Simon and they spend that time there. So I've seen that a lot of schools like this.
Eric, can I comment on that? Because you're absolutely right. And, years and years past, I don't want to date myself, but anyone that finds me on LinkedIn can figure out the math. But years and years ago, the model for recruiting, companies would have their core schools, and a lot of companies would choose schools that were either in their city or in their region. And then the rankings started to become a factor in how companies chose the schools that they recruit from. And now I think that that still exists, but looking at the number of alumni from a certain school that work in a certain company, there are certain cities that my team and I travel to, and I am floored by the number of alum that we have in these particular cities, in these particular companies. And so we create momentum with Anvesh going to his company. He's creating that momentum. So it no longer is an issue with regards to where a school is located. It's where's the talent. And there's something here at Simon that is, they're consistently hiring our students. We are a STEM focused, one of the first MBA programs in the country to have a STEM designation. And that's largely important for companies because that signifies how our students are trained and how they learn. Also, because of the variety of places that our students are coming to us from, our students are mobile, geographically mobile. I have not met a student at Simon that would not consider a job in pretty much any location if the opportunity measured up to what they were looking for. That makes our job easy. I've been in other academic institutions where students were they wanted to stay right there where the school was, and that's okay, but it limits you. So I think that the Simon, as I mentioned, Rochester is a transient community for students, both undergraduate and graduate. And so we focus a lot of our time and our efforts outside of Rochester because we are helping our students connect with where the opportunities are. So I do think that there is a lot to be said about some of the things that can happen here in our community, tapping into the startup community, tapping into the alumni community, but also just taking advantage of all of the opportunities that are happening outside of our community and where ultimately our students are landing jobs. And so Anvesh will be in New York. I'm going to New York next week. I'm meeting with some alumni. We've got a lot of traction in New York City. There's probably not a month on the calendar that someone from Simon is not in New York City, that an alum from New York City is not coming to Rochester for whatever reason. So you can tell a lot by school, and I'll share this with prospective students. You can tell a lot about a school by where their alumni are and where they work. And those are things that you should be looking at as you're making some decisions. Because if I see that, Anvesh from the class of 24 is going to McKinsey, or Shab from the class of 25 is going to Kenview, thinking optimistically, Shab, because you're going to nail your internship, no doubt. But those are the things that prospective students should be looking at. Not necessarily, there's Kodak and Xerox are no longer a big presence in Rochester. Well, think of Rochester. This is your temporary home, 2 years. You're going to come here. You're going to get trained by the best faculty in the world. You're going to have some great opportunities to visit different countries, work on projects. You're going to work with a one-on-one with a career coach, and you're going to land an internship in a job that takes you far away from us, but we're going to bring you back to help us with the next cohort. So it's a 2-year investment in yourself that I've not met anyone who regrets making it.
I love it. We're going to hire LaTanya in admissions. We're going to.
That's that circular model I was talking about.
I know, right? I'm just going to add on to what LaTanya just said, because I think we need to drive that home, is that LaTanya and I are on the road a lot, and we engage with alums a lot. She does even more than I do, but I'm in a fortunate position and role to actually be able to engage with alums even more now than I ever used to. And so, we are meeting with alums all the time. We have alums that will literally fly across the country to be able to see one another. And so, that is amazing. They have created these bonds with each other that they will go to programming to be able to see each other all the time. And so we're seeing that constantly. And I expect that Anvesh is going to do the same thing. I know that Shab is going to do the same thing. I mean, Shab is also very close with a lot of the alums that I know already. She's already very close with a lot of them. And I'm sure that Anvesh is as well. And, but we're seeing this regularly. LaTanya and I go to alumni events, and we see alums that are traveling into different cities from other cities to be able to see one another. And so that's amazing to see that. That just goes to show how close and tight knit this community is. And so the support is absolutely there. But I didn't mean to take over the session, but that's what I just did.
What I heard is I'm going to get a job offer to work in the admissions team. Is that right?
Yeah, you know what? I can't. They're going to kill me if I take you away from like career center. So anyway.
And this is what we love when we bring schools to the table, like this kind of camaraderie and the collaboration that we're able to see. And we just have time for one last question for our MBA students. What would you say to someone who might be on the fence about choosing Simon?
I would say if you value diversity, inclusion, the collaborative environment that you've seen on this video cast and you've heard us speak about, if you value community, then Simon is the right place for you. I remember back in 2021 when I was first exploring the opportunity to apply to MBA programs, and an alum that Julie mentioned, I actually became very close to her. She became my mentor. She pushed me to apply to business school and told me to go to the diversity weekend. Definitely come check out the campus. Come see if it's the right fit for you. If you're on the fence, there's so many current students, faculty members, admissions members who are willing to answer any of your questions. And I think it is one of the most special places that I've ever been. And I think even once I graduate, I know LaTanya mentioned that it's your 2-year home. I feel like Rochester is always going to have a very special place in my heart because of the community and the people here.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same thing. I'd say start talking to one of us. Honestly, all of us interact with a lot of prospective students, and I always tell them that I'm not getting paid to tell them whatever I say, because I actually love it here, and the paid forward culture, right? Whenever I see someone that fits in great here, I push them all I can. I'm like, hey, do it. You're going to fit right in. I introduce them to more people. It's one of those things where it's the network you're building, right? And this network's going to keep growing, and the way you do it is also prospective students. But I don't know, I love Simon, the community, and as much as I can say it, the easiest way I usually introduce that to people is by whenever somebody says, hey, I want to get into venture fund, just introduce them to one of my classmates or one of the alumni that's in venture fund. And once people start seeing how helpful people they're being to somebody who's just looking into getting at Simon, I think they get a feeling of what Simon is. So I always just say, start talking to somebody about your interests and you'll figure it out.
Oh, you're muted, Eric.
Eric, we're not hearing you.
Now you are. As Krithika was saying, that's all the time we have for today. This was a fantastic episode. I really liked it. And if you did too, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to MBA Waves to stay on top of all the latest in business and education. And for the schedule of upcoming episodes, check us out at mbawaves.com. Thank you, everyone. Of course, Julie, Shab, LaTanya, and Anvesh, and of course my co-host Bara and Krithika. Thank you for joining us on MBA Waves. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, all of you. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.